I am thrilled to introduce our panel. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. The tech and the tools that are being built to help us in the running of our homes and the raising of our families. I'm joined today with three wonderful fellow builders in this space. Blessing, our fearless leader at Mother Honestly and Villo, Julie of Magnify Ventures, and Michael, the founder and CEO of Maple. And I would love it if we can go around and introduce yourselves. Each of you brings such a unique point of view to this space, such a unique experience. And when we're talking about building in the space of families and our homes, a lot of that nuance and a lot of that context is super important to figuring out our points of view and how we're solving in this space. For our audience today, we've got 45 minutes. There's a lot to talk about. We're going to try to keep it tight and moving to a lot of interesting topics. What we hope you're going to get away from this is a deeper understanding of the work that is actually happening in the space of technology and how it can help us run our homes and raise our families in a better way. We hope you'll walk away with optimism because it has been an incredibly hard, particularly the past 18 months. I'm a parent. I've got two daughters who are school-aged, and so definitely understand these challenges firsthand. And we're hoping that you can walk away with some practical solutions. Obviously, perhaps some of ours, some of Julie's portfolio companies, but then perhaps some others that you might not have heard of. And so it is my pleasure to hand it over to Blessing, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Hopefully no one is hearing my Paw Patrol movie in the background. Yeah, I told him to turn it down. So if you're in this, I've seen a lot of moms share with us on social media that Paw Patrol and Peppa Pig and a few other wonderful tech solutions are helping us keep the kids at bay. So thank you all so much for joining. I'm Blessing Adesina, and I'm the founder and CEO of Mother Honestly and our upcoming tech platform, Villo, which you can find at hellovillo.com. And I don't know what else Havni wants me to say, but I think a lot of people on here knows me. So I'm going to pass it on to Julie and Michael.
Julie.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you all today. I'm Julie Blewski, and I'm managing partner of Magnify Ventures. And we're a new early stage venture capital fund investing in technology solutions for parents and the modern family. We see this area as not only a big problem and an area of need for solutions, but also a big market opportunity for investors to get behind technology and tools that will lighten the load for parents and families.
Perfect.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Perry. I'm the CEO and founder of Maple. Maple is a mobile application focused on helping households collaborate better on day-to-day tasks and events. We are also building a platform with partnership integrations to make your day easier and faster.
Amazing. And I'll just give a little bit more of context on what we're trying to build with Milo. Leah mentioned it's a lot about tackling that invisible load. I come to this space just to solve my own problems. I was the former founder of a company called Poppy that was in the childcare space. I'm since then moving on to Milo and thinking about the invisible load that we all carry. Everything from all of the information in our heads, all of the logistics and the coordination, to the worries that keep us up at night. How can we use technology to do that in an easier way that doesn't feel constant and overwhelming? So what I'd love to do is kick it off and say, the topic is about tools and tech, but before we can start solving things, we need to start thinking about defining the problem first. And I think the way that each of us defines the problem also informs the solutions that we're putting out into the world. So I'd love for us to go around and have a little bit of a conversation around what is your specific point of view on what is the problem in the space of running our households, what is tricky about it, and then what are the specific ones that you're really interested in prioritizing and tackling? Michael, if we could start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, prior to starting Maple, I spent 15 years building technology for small business owners. And the big part of my mission in that body of work was, how can we take the best of technology to allow for a solopreneur to compete with any business? And as I became a parent, became a father, and really kind of started to recognize the challenges of having a dual working household and sharing the workload and sharing the care, I think all of us kind of universally agree that there has not been a really rich, deep tech solution to allow for that kind of collaboration or surfacing of the invisible workload or all the various things that different people are trying to work on. And so there's a huge ecosystem of opportunity there that other verticals of business have been solving for decades. The root, I think, for Maple, what we're trying to actually solve, kind of sat with our launch campaign. We launched Maple a month ago publicly after almost a 6-month beta. And our campaign was, it's not 1950, it's 50-50. And I think that a lot of people, probably specifically a lot of the people in the audience, feel that very deeply, that there's been inequalities in the household for a very, very, very long time. And so while there's been a tremendous amount of change at a social level in terms of women entering the workforce, everything else around us getting more efficient and streamlined and easier, for some reason inside of our homes, there still seems to be a primary caregiver and a secondary caregiver. And so at its core, what Maple is trying to solve, and hopefully, we help with an array of things, but at its core is shifting that 80-20 principle that exists in companies that also exists in our home and moving it as close to 50-50 as possible. And we've done that through a messaging, like a suite of products today that allow for higher level of communication, higher level of visibility into what the needs are of the home, and just staying organized around family events. And so that's really what Maple is trying to tackle is, can we build the platform that allows for that shift to happen? And can we build the ecosystem of partners that allow for the other layers of complexity that are happening inside the home to be solved?
Fantastic. Blessing, I'll take it to you because then Julie will speak from a little bit more of a portfolio point of view. So Blessing, how do you think about the problems in the space?
I mean, I think it's the premise that we share at Mother Honesty has always been, how can women build better careers and happier homes? And when we first started, we were naive because we thought women just needed to be ambitious, right? We thought, they needed to just, show up and be superheroes. And then we started realizing that, wow, we need to pay attention to just how much work women were doing on the home front. My friend Eve Rodsky put it in a very nice Excel spreadsheet that she shared with me. And it was 500 plus tasks that we are doing around the house. Everything from cleaning to cooking to changing diapers to calling the school and setting up appointments. And these tasks, what they do is that they actually rob us of the precious time that we need to be spending with our family, that we need to be spending fulfilling our personal dreams, our personal goals and ambition. And nothing against men, but this work, which I actually don't think it's invisible in the house. What is invisible is what Avni has shared. It's all the things in your head, but things that are visible, like cleaning, cooking, that's unpaid work that women are doing repetitively and regularly. That, quite frankly, a lot of men are not doing in the home. So there was a study by the Brookings educational institution that showed that during the pandemic, women were doing 4 or 5 times more unpaid work at home than men. And so, of course, we're not surprised when we see, millions and millions of women being forced out of the workforce as a result of not fully participating. Because what happens is when you spend so much time cooking and cleaning, you're so exhausted that you then have what you're actually responsible for, whether that's your business or that's your career. So what we're doing at Mother Honestly through our tech platform, Vilo, is basically saying, how can we shift that unpaid work? How can we introduce a new division of labor in the home? Because frankly, we have amazing solutions like Maple, right, that will help us, kind of shift that work between the man and the woman. But we come from an angle saying we actually think that there's just a lot of work to be done on the home front. And is there a way for us to introduce somebody else or or tech to actually solve that problem? So that's where Vilo comes in, is that we are looking at this repetitive and regular task that happens around the home, and we're saying, which one of these can we take off? So everything from laundry to cooking to cleaning to caregiving support to making sure that we actually provide that that solution at a task level, right? Because a lot of us don't have disposable incomes for us to hire a full-time nanny or even a part-time nanny, if you will. The average income is $50,000. You can't really afford to get a full-time or a part-time nanny, but can you afford $30, right? Or $40 to get the support you need at a peak? Or when you work crunch, or when somebody shows up and says, hey, one of your child is sick, how about the other kids, right? Who is going to watch them? So those kind of things. And so we're super excited about our solution. And of course, there are other solutions as well. And I know, Avni, you're gonna get into that later on.
Fantastic. And if I can just really quickly interject, because I think there's a beautiful kind of thread here, which is when we're talking about the work of the home, everything from the invisible to the visible, there's been an interesting framework that I've always loved to work against. And it's actually by an economist that has dug into the work of unpaid labor, invisible labor across the world in lots of different geographies. And it's this concept of like, how do we tackle this? You need to be able to recognize the work, make the invisible visible. You need to reduce work. You need to apply technology to reduce the amount of work that anybody is doing. And then you need to redistribute the work. So take that smaller heap of work and then redistribute it across a number of different people. And what I love about this is that each of us are working at different parts of this. For me, it's very much at the beginning, which is like, how do you take the stuff that is in my inbox and make it into some visible thing that technology can act on and reduce, so that it isn't a fight between, is my husband doing enough and I'm doing enough? Is there yet another person that could be doing something, like with Villo? How do I communicate this smaller heap of stuff? And so I think what's interesting and what I'd love the audience to kind of hear is that this is a deep, complex problem with a lot of different pieces. And a lot of our solutions are pointed at different parts of it, but work in a lot of concert. And so, Julie, I'd love to hear from you, because you can even speak more to the ecosystem and the larger.
Yeah, well, I'll just say, I think Michael and Blessing and you, captured the problem really well. I mean, as an investment firm, we think a lot about how did we get here and what's the ecosystem of solutions for solving these problems. So the only thing I would add to kind of the definition of the problem and where we are, I mean, I think we have to recognize that, as you just said, Avni, there are many aspects to this problem, and we're here because, families are struggling. Women are taking on more than they ever have before, working more, higher participation in the workforce, and parenting has just become much more relentless, expensive, and challenging. And the models for caregiving and support and the marketplace of technology around families and mothers in particular just hasn't caught up with that change and what we've seen. We as a firm are really excited about a couple of different areas. First, what we're here to talk about, which we call household optimization. We think that there's going to be a wave of technology and tools that move into the household and reduce labor, so cooking, cleaning, laundry, all of that, but also address what you've all been talking about, which is also the invisible load and the mental load that parents and mothers in particular are carrying across the household. We're also investing in and seeing a lot of technology that equips parents with expertise, community, content, other sorts of support, whether that's finding and accessing childcare or thinking about child development at particular stages. So we're really seeing a range of solutions across this space. And I think the three companies that you all lead are great examples of that. And I know we'll talk about some others as well.
Absolutely. So for a lot of folks, when we think about technology and tools, and especially when we talk about family tech, a lot of times we talk about very necessarily, and I come from the space, but childcare, we'll talk about leave, we'll talk about a lot of really important pieces. But I think what you're hearing here is the three of us are very much focused on the space of running our homes, household management, any of these pieces that actually take, the actual everyday kind of tasks and frictions and make that a little bit lighter and easier. And so when we're talking, we've touched a little bit about how each of our solutions kind of might do that, but I love nothing more than specifics, because for a lot of us that are on the ground with kids every single day, it can be hard to imagine better. Because you're just trying to keep your head above water. So can each of you kind of paint a picture of like one or two ways that actively and bring, like, I love talking to users and things, like talk to us about some of the experiences and the real ways on the ground that your solutions are actually helping in the everyday on the topics that we're talking about. So maybe I'll reverse it, and Blessing, if you want to go first.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest problem, the biggest everyday solution, I think, Avni, that's your question. I apologize. I'm like multitasking as a mom.
No, what's a way that you've seen recently that someone is using Villo, or like make it very visceral and very specific for our audience on how can they expect these tools to help them in the everyday?
Absolutely. So I can give an example. We're currently in Houston, Texas, and Villo is basically, in a very succinct manner, Villo is basically an on-demand managed marketplace where we match vetted, trusted, and qualified support, home life taskers, to families that need help the most. So that's as simple as it gets. It basically means when you need support, whether it's doing laundry or just cleaning, because a lot of times you can go on, on various other platforms. I don't want to mention their name. You can go on those platforms to say, I need help with cleaning, cooking, and watching my kids, right? A lot of the babysitting, platforms out there, the babysitter shows up and the babysitter is just like, I am not doing your dishes. I would not be picking up any laundry. But Villo is different in the sense that we're sort of like a surrogate mom. So we show up and we're ready to do everything mom is doing or dad is doing, right? Whether that's, folding the laundry, watching the kids, providing them with their snacks and serving their meals and cleaning up afterwards. Like I said, it's all at a very task level, whether that is wiping down your countertop or loading your dishwasher. You should be able to tell us exactly what you need and when you need it. And like I said, a game changer is that it's on demand, right? So you can get it in the next 2 hours or next day or schedule it out. Other solutions that I've seen, that I truly believe support in the same level or very close level as Villo and other platforms as well. Again, I love Maple because that's something that I have used, with my husband to say, hey, we don't have help today. So let's see what's on your calendar. Let's see what's on mine and what needs to be done. Right. So that's one solution there. But I think that, I've also seen a lot of moms right now and just lean on each other a little bit more, because a lot of times, who is better to support you than your next door neighbor, whose child also goes to the same school as yours, and they can help pick up your child or, help serve breakfast or serve dinner, right, while you're gone. So those are some of the ways that, some of the solutions that we're starting to see is that more women are leaning more on each other. And I think the more we keep having these conversations, especially on platforms like this, to say it's okay. It's okay to accept help. I think that's the biggest thing for us is because as women, a lot of us, we have this do-it-yourself mentality. Nothing against American women. I am, part American and part Nigerian, but from the other world where I come from, we accept help. We're like, look, who wants to help me with this child? But over here in America, what we do is that we want to be the one folding our kids' laundry. We want to be the one going to the store and touching the tomatoes and picking the very tender one, right? I want to say, give yourself permission. That is the premise of Villo, is that can we give ourselves permission to just take a day off, one day off, and just focus on yourself, your goals, your personal well-being. So whatever solution you find, let it give you rest. I think that's the biggest thing. Let it give you rest.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. I was kind of laughing when you said that Americans struggle with help, because in our early product, a beta product, it's about putting everything in your day in one spot and asking family members to help you with it. And the backlash that we got was through the roof. From people saying, I don't want to have to ask for help. And so we learned some painful lessons about the choice of words and how we kind of brand and frame things in our culture and society. And so we've made some pretty significant changes to take help out of the equation in that way. So Maple, again, we're 1 month old on the 9th of October. So we're still in our very early days, but what we're seeing is, I think where we're creating a tremendous amount of value, again, in terms of trying to shift that 80-20 to 50-50, because that's really what it's about. for us. And we've been able to establish household topics that people can kind of come around, whether that's talking about school, whether that's we're going to release a report here soon about what's been most popular even Halloween as a household topic that finally you can have a central place, an organized place to talk about, create tasks around, plan around. It just is starting to, even in its infancy, see thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of interactions per day, of people kind of conjugating and collaborating on things that have to happen under their house. And it's not just lost in a text message stream, or it's not lost in an email chain, or it's not lost on an over-the-counter conversation. So just keeping all of the communication and the responsibilities centralized under these household topics, which eventually will evolve into household workflows, has been incredibly successful for us in the early days. We also have a bit of an AI layer to our product that kind of gathers the information on what everyone's doing for that individual day. And we've watched these huge spikes when we release that message, which has created conversation when someone says, hey, you have 15 things to do today in 10 meetings. And that's a great conversation starter just to say, how can I help you out? One of the things that we really, really want to try to avoid doing is simply make life easier for mom. We kind of played with that a little bit, and we realized that doesn't fix the system that's broken currently. It's the lack of collaboration. It's the lack of participation between two people. And so we've been really quite adamant about creating the right level playing field from day one to bend the curve inside the household, as Julie put, to optimize and create more efficiencies between two people who are trying to take care of their kids or their parents.
That's fantastic. I actually have a follow-up question for you in a sec, but Julie, I'd love to hear from you about, what are we not seeing? So what are some areas that you're interested in that certainly we're covering different parts of the ecosystem, but what are still places that you're hoping to see innovation that you'd be interested in funding founders on those areas?
Yeah, well, you three are working on a very important and still emerging space. I think what Michael was just saying is really important. We can't just invest in solutions to make mom more efficient or, make mom more productive. We really have to figure out how to fix the system that's around mothers so that work is being shared with others and redistributed. So really interested in investing in solutions that redistribute the labor, whether that's physical labor or mental labor for mothers. I know our friend Eve Rodsky is speaking later today, and she has a wonderful book, Fair Play, that talks a lot about this, about building relationships in the home to redistribute that work. So I think, we're really interested in that. I think we are seeing, great solutions emerge in spaces like childcare, child development, et cetera, but it's really around that mental load where I'd love to see more innovation, and which is why I'm really excited to follow the companies that the three of you are building, which address both, physical labor and the work that needs to be done, but also that mental load that mothers are facing.
Great. So the next question I'd love to dive into is, in my experience in building in the family space over the last 7 years, it's one thing to say we want to take technology, software code, and then apply it to these very, very human problems. It's my experience that you have to really understand it and oftentimes live the problem to understand how it might need to be solved. So for those of us that have children and deal with all the childcare aspects of it, it isn't just about finding someone that you would deem safe and putting them in your home. It is about understanding that they almost are a proxy, as Blessing you've mentioned, for yourself, that if you can't be there, so that takes you into levels of values and how would they do discipline and all these other things. So it gets very complicated. When we think about family management, it can be easy to kind of abstract it away and say, oh, it's like software. Families are like small organizations, and therefore we can apply principles of Trello and Asana and some of these other really fantastic software solutions that work for the flow of businesses. But frankly, in my experience, part of my journey in building Milo has been to stop and not say, we're going to rush to build. A lot of the last, many months has been to understand what are the unique flows of for families. And so, Michael, what I would love to get your point of view on is very specifically, both you and I work in the space of software interfaces that busy parents have to interact with. And then what makes it super complicated for us, it isn't that you have to get one user to adopt it. You have to get multiple people to adopt it. And that makes it exponentially harder. And so how do you think about not only how is the space of building software in this space specifically different and unique challenges, but what are some ways that it's actually like a superpower that allows us to have different kinds of creativity in the space?
Yeah, well, you made a lot of really important points there. So first, I think part of the problem with the space as a whole is that people historically have been using Asana and Trello and all these kind of pieces of software that were designed for corporate and startups and jobs and trying to make it work for their household. And so the innovation has been very limited because everything that's built on top of that has been built for our 9-to-5 corporate jobs. So I think that that's what makes the space super exciting, is because everyone's been trying to make what currently exists work for their home, and these products aren't meant for our home. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there. The other point that you made, which is sadly incredibly true, is that even Maple is not overly powerful if it's just one person in there. Now, we obviously are doing a lot because there are 17% of households in America, and America is really our primary market today, that are single mom, single father, single parent households. So we still want to do some stuff with automation and technology to lighten the load for potentially a single parent. But the data so far in our first month is staggering and sad, right? When a father signs up to use Maple, he almost always 100% invites his partner. There's this expectation that they will do it together. When mom signs up, it's not always 100% that she's inviting her partner. And we see that that's oftentimes where we have the biggest piece of fall off. So I think that we have to do, and again, this is why I think that the issue is less of a technology issue. And it's actually, I mean, the opportunity is a technology issue, but the actual issue is the system issue, right? Is how, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that's such, sorry to interrupt you, Micah. I think that's such an important point
it is.
that you're making, because we cannot build tools and technology for the home in the same way that we do in the workplace. And that's been a huge problem in this space.
That's exactly right.
But when I invest in things for my home, I want it to feel joyful. I want to enjoy the experience. That's the part of our lives that we love. I mean, that's what's most human. And that has to be the starting point for solutions into our home. It's not just another piece of software or a piece of work technology. So we have to fundamentally think differently about starting with joy and the experience as we build in this space.
I will say one thing that I'll just interject to Michael's point about like painful learnings. One early thing that we learned was that parents don't want to come home to be managed by yet another piece of software. And so they've used up all of their discipline on the tools that they have to use at work. And so when they come home, to your point, Julie, how do you not make it feel like their lives are getting run by another piece of software? And so again, those are like painful lessons that you have to learn as you go along.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably all very aligned on this. Like, we started with a bit of a different product, and I think we still try to solve the problem. Like, our problem has not changed. Our approach has changed significantly. And I think what's kind of sad, to just kind of reinforce this collectively, is we almost never have a hard time explaining Maple to a mother or to a mother that is also a full-time investor. We always have a very challenging time explaining this to a father who's a full-time investor, because they say, well, why do we need things like this? I'm like, probably because your partner at home is drowning and struggling. And there's a reason why the majority of the people on our cap table are moms. And so part of this opportunity, which I like to think about all the time when talking to people about family technology, is this is so much less about technology and so much more about the start of a movement of change. I always think forever about the fact that one person decided that the entire world was going to run on a 24-hour clock once trains became a predominant form of transportation. Like, it changed everything forever. And, thousands of years, time was done one way, and then all of a sudden this moment happens and time changed forever. And I think that there's a reality that we, all of us on this call, everyone in attendance, have inherited generations and generations and generations and generations of like how the household and how the roles of the household are supposed to be. And I'd like to think that experience as a father is going to be different than my father's experience as a father. And hopefully my son's experience as a father is significantly different than my experience as a father, that we're like really at the start of a significant movement of change. And family technology is going to be the catalyst for that.
Amazing. So I do want to wrap, and we've got some really great questions in there that I want to kind of turn to. One last question though, Julie, I do want to touch on this because it kind of speaks to this is, again, in my experience, starting to raise for Poppy 7 years ago, it was a very different landscape trying to pitch something in this space. And I will say from a point of optimism, where I do think that is changing. We're getting a whole set of different investors. I would love for you to lead us on a point on how are you making the point that this is a big area of investment and returns, not because of just the societal and social good, but because these are big spaces that are going to make people a lot of money. How do you approach that?
They are, for sure. And I think the good news is that is starting to change. Unfortunately, the pandemic really laid bare the caregiving crisis in this country and the challenges that families and mothers in particular are facing in a whole new way. And we're starting to see, a flood of interest and new investment come into this space. And people really looking at this as a market opportunity. These are huge untapped areas with, great potential for return. But I think as we do that, we also need to make sure that we're investing in solutions that will reach large numbers of families, not just, wealthy families or the 1%, but,
That's right.
What will spread like fire across the country and, address challenges. And there's a lot of great data on this. Our partners at Pivotal Ventures and the holding company did a great report at investincare.com that really sizes this market opportunity. So the good news is I think there's a light being turned on in the investment community that this is not just about social good, but this is really a market need and opportunity as well.
Yeah, if I could paint like a little additional color to that, I know I'm not an institutional investor, but I feel very, and this is why I'm personally excited as an entrepreneur. This feels very, very similar to like 2010 when I was raising money for my second company, and no one wanted to invest in the small business space. It was like build enterprise software. Enterprise is where the money's at, and I think it took the Shopifys and the Squares of the world to really show that there is mass opportunity there. And so, I think the difference between that is that it felt like everyone in the small business arena at that time was very collaborative because they needed somebody to win, right? It was definitely a very much like we are all in this together. Otherwise this industry won't exist. And I think family technology would benefit greatly from all of us really kind of cheerleading and finding some leverage points, because it needs to have a couple breakthrough companies, not just a bunch of caregiving specific focused companies getting very well funding. And I think that's going to matter greatly for the next 10 years. I really do.
Perfect. I'll turn it to the questions, but the last point on this is that we as consumers, all of you wield a lot of power in these spaces because you demanding better solutions, you actually using and trying different things actually matters, right? So when you think about yourself as a consumer, demand better, demand more, that you be seen, your work be seen, and that solutions are being built for you. So with that, I'll turn it to, we've got about 10 minutes and a couple of really great questions. If there's others, please share them. I'm going to take this one on trust, which is such an incredible question and an important point when we're talking about products that are built for us in the shadow of conversations around like IG Kids and all of these other things about trust and safety. I think it is so critical that each of us talks about our points of view on trust. Everything from, yes, like the basics of like safety of the humans that we let into our homes, but everything else from like data privacy and security, those are all about trust and credibility. So I would love to hear from each of you about how do you think about the issue, but then specifically, how are you building it into your product to protect the users and the people? Michael, if you start.
Sure, thank you. First and foremost, I'm a father before I'm a founder. I'm not doing anything as it relates to Maple that I would feel it would be inappropriate with my own family data and my own children. So we take data, and I was a part of the AI and machine learning data teams at Shopify. So I'm very well versed on being GDPR compliant and everything else on a global level. We take data at the highest level of serious. So that's the easiest way I can answer that. We're not in the business of selling family data. We're not in the business of being an ad network. We're not in the business of doing anything that would jeopardize anyone's privacy. We are still a young company, no doubt. We're 8 employees. We're not a company of 5,000 people. So we have a long way to go in terms of like hiring security engineering and things of that nature. But even at our infancy, we have taken it serious from the get-go, and I don't see a world in any capacity where that changes.
Thank you. Blessing.
Yeah, for us, when we first started thinking about how can we support moms and Mother Honestly, and I have to say this, Velo, which is really Velo by Mother Honestly, because we basically listened to thousands and thousands of moms saying, well, I would love to work out, or I would love to do so much,
right?
But I don't have the time because I'm basically being crushed at home. And so when we started thinking about solution for Velo, we actually brought up 500 moms together and we said, look, what we're trying to do, can you provide us with how we need to do this? And the biggest thing they said was trust. They said, I don't know if I can let anyone just come into my house, sort of on demand, kind of like Uber, right? You don't know who your driver is. They just kind of show up. And so it really helped us in carving out and shaping the solution to say, how can we make sure that whoever comes into your home, unlike other platforms where you just go in and maybe you find a babysitter or a tasker, you don't know, who they are and what they do, right? How can we make Velo different? So when we look at our Velos, which is what we're calling them, the folks that are going into the home to actually get work done, we have a very rigorous application. First of all, it's like, if you can't go through this rigorous application, you can't even be with us. And then second, we do all the background checks. I know that's already standard. And then we invite them in person. We want to see you. We want to see how you actually interact, not just with dishes, but also with kids. And then when you actually become a Velo customer, you are able to then choose and pick your Velo. So we would automatically match you with a Velo. And then when that Velo serves you, you can say, you know what, I really like Blessing. She was really good with the kids. And then you can save Blessing as your preferred Velo. And then slowly you start building this network of Velos that you trust. And then the algorithm can pick those people at any given time when you try to book your next Velo service. So that's one of the ways that we're building trust. The other way is really to collect feedback. So collecting feedback from all of our customers and saying, how did this person do? Is there anything we can do better, right? And then repetition. If you've used Blessing once, twice, and third time, you're kind of like, you know what? I'm sure I'm going to get Blessing the next time, or I'll get Avni, right, the next time, because you've built this network of Velos. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to build that support and trust, because again, quite frankly, I don't want just anyone showing up at my door to watch my 4 kids, which I can't believe I'm a mom of 4 now, but yeah, it really heightens the trust factor. It's like, don't feel any of them,
Thank you for both of those. I think the thread that you're hearing, and which is also like something that I feel is so important, is for all of us, we are the people that we're solving for first. If it doesn't pass it for our families, it does not go forward.
That's
I think
right.
that's also why it's so important that in these spaces we have people on teams that we can use all the words diverse, inclusive, but it's important that we have the voices of the people that we are serving on the founding teams, because these decisions are fundamental at day one. To wrap, in the last 5 minutes, I'd actually like to do a bit of a lightning round. There is one question that, as putting our founder hats on to pay it forward, I'd like each of us to answer, and then end with like one thing that you're super optimistic about in the space. So the question is, if you're a mom with a tech idea, how do you approach research and development for your idea, and how can we help inspire the solutions needed? I think this is such an important one, because again, so many of us are so busy with this every day that we cannot show up and build the solutions that we can build for ourselves and our fellow moms and everything. And I know that this is a topic that is so deep, near and dear to our hearts. And so how would you tackle this? And one thing you're optimistic about, Blessing?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's, if you have a tech idea and you need the time, right? You need the time to research. You need the time to ask questions, collect data, collect information, because there's nothing as worse as actually building a solution that nobody wants, right? For me, it's really about first of all, and it all goes back to you need to redistribute the labor in your home, because if you don't have time to get that work done, time is not going to magically appear. And I always say, don't stretch yourself beyond your limits, because what happens when you're burned out? You rush through things, or you just never come up with the right solution. The other thing is, in order to actually get that solution, you need to get out there and basically talk to moms and dads. A lot of time we're all speaking to ourselves. The funniest thing was we actually learned from moms that, gee, you need to be talking to my husband, because I'm the one doing the work. You're preaching to the choir. Who you need to be talking to is the dads. So we started talking to more dads, and then we found out that dad said, you know what? I'm not helping because I think we can outsource laundry. Like, why does she need to be folding laundry? Right? So it all came back to, wow, dad is actually giving us the solution. He's telling us that, look, I'm not helping because I think that there are better ways to do this, or there's somebody else that can do this. And so talk to as many people as you can. Talk to people that are not even going to be your customers. We thought moms were going to be our only customer, and then we started talking to dads, and then we started talking to employers telling us that, look, we are suffering because our productivity is down, because even dads right now are not able to provide the kind of work, the quality of work that we expect, because everyone is drowning with childcare or household responsibilities. And so as many people as you can, expand your horizon and just think outside of the box.
Perfect. Michael, I'll take you.
Okay, I'll be efficient here. I'm just going to reinforce what Blessing said. Two things. One is the best entrepreneurs I've ever met have been moms. They are just like super entrepreneurs. So I already know that you're an entrepreneur in so many ways, and so you have the skill sets in you to be successful. And the second thing that I say to all entrepreneurs is just get started and be fearless about failing. Like, very few people ship something and it's perfect out the box. Very few people ship a marketing strategy, it's perfect out the box. Like, it's about learning and being committed to the problem, and eventually over a long period of time, it will all find its way to the top. So best of luck and get going.
And Julie, if you could share your point of optimism.
Yeah, a quick point of optimism for me. Well, 2 points. First of all, I think mothers today are demanding better solutions. I think they've just decided that we're not going to go forward and live in this environment anymore. And they're going to ask the questions. They're going to get involved. Some of them are going to build the solutions. And that's incredibly hopeful. And then the other thing that gives me optimism is the three of you and entrepreneurs who are out there really leveraging their lived experiences to build new solutions in this space. And I think that that's just going to change the game for mothers, parents, and families in the next 10 years in a big way.
Amazing. I will add for my own self, as a non-technical solo founder that was set off on this path like 7 years ago, now building a software company. Don't focus on the tech part, focus on the problem and the solution. You can figure out what the solution is with non-tech, and then actually see if there's something there to then move yourself forward. Always just focus on the next piece. Talk to as many people, figure out if that's the actual right thing. Then the tech part, you can sort that out. So with that, we are at time. And I just wanted to thank each of you. One thing of deep optimism that for me is that these are spaces of deep collaboration. You might otherwise argue that we are all competitors, but in this space, because it is so tricky to build really great solutions, a lot of us are collaborators. And so I think that's an incredible thing going forward. So thank you all for joining us. And I'll hand it back to Kristen.